today. I also feel the need to talk about it because I know how many young men and women are like me who grew up in conservative Christian households and are desperate to experience marriage, or at least what they think experiencing marriage is, without realizing what it actually entails. And by doing what most influencers do best, omitting the difficult details of my life, not only am I living in a painful contradiction myself, I am denying what may provide some important truth to my audience. Something I have always promised you guys, but failed to deliver here for far too long because it has been a personally difficult truth to tell myself. We all like to talk about owning people with hard facts and logic until those hard facts own us. I find far too often online we portray marriage the same way that Disney movies do, as the end of the story.
Oh,
You've
isn't
made
that the
it.
truth?
The adventure is complete.
Ain't that the truth? Let me tell you what, as someone who's been married almost 12 years now, like marriage ain't the end of the story. Like, and it's funny. There's research to say that the more money you spend on your wedding, the more likely you are to get divorced, because like you're treating it as like this big fairy tale thing, and it's kind of like you're not really ready for what real marriage is. I'm sorry. Like marriage is like ups and downs and fucking compromises, and like, you know, it's about being with someone who maybe you were like had a very different appearance when you married them, and then they get a little bit older and they get a little bit bigger and all this stuff, and like, oh, guess what, you're still married to them. And it's, it's like when you're in it, it's like not that big of a deal, right? But I think for some people it's like, if they married like the young hot blonde, they kind of expect the blonde to always be young and hot, and guess what, that's just not the way it works, man. Life has other plans for that. So I definitely I agree with her perspective on that. It's not as, marriage takes work, and it takes compromise, and it takes partnership, and there will be times when you are more angry at your spouse than you can even deal with. There will be times when you hate your spouse. You can like love them and hate them at the same time. It's like one of those. And and there will be times when you want to give up. And some people do give up. And I don't begrudge anyone who says, you know what, this is just not for me. This didn't work out. I did not like when Steven Crowder said I picked wrong about my wife. I didn't like that. But like I don't think that there's like some marriages are, my parent. Okay, so fun fact, this video is going to take forever because I'm just going to keep telling stories. I posted about this on Twitter, but I'll share it with you guys as well. Fun fact, this is my mother's wedding jewelry. I received this in the mail yesterday. I had all sorts of feelings about receiving my mother's wedding jewelry in the mail yesterday. The reason that I received my mother's wedding jewelry in the mail yesterday is because after almost 50 years together, 50, my mother and father decided to get a divorce. And this was sprung on me like towards the end of last year. And to be quite frank, they probably should have gotten a divorce a while ago. I didn't really feel either way about it, to be honest. And then there was like a whole goddamn rigmarole of like my mother like texting me these passive aggressive things about my father, and my mother being pissed because my father wasn't moving out of the house fast enough and all this shit. And it's like, and it's just, it's weird. But like, I guess I tell you that story to say like, and by the way, for people saying you're sorry, like I'm kind of numb to the whole thing, to be honest, because I feel like my parents should have gotten divorced a long time ago. In fact, I remember probably 10, 15 years ago saying to my mother, you need to divorce my father. Like, and it, like, it maybe wasn't like 10 years ago or something. And they just didn't do it. And like, you can understand that because it's like they had been together for a long time. You're committed at a certain point. But I guess I'm saying that like, not all relationships are meant to last forever. And so if you want to be in marriage, you have to make compromises to make it work, but you have to want to make it work. Um Your desire to be in a functional relationship with your spouse has to be stronger than whatever animosity you have towards them for whatever mistake they made or whatever they did. And some people can weather it and some people can't. And I don't think that I'm not saying that one is better than the other or whatever. I just think like people need to face reality sometimes when it comes to marriage to know that it is not easy. Everyone will fight. You will have ups and downs. And then you need to make the choice about whether or not it's a path that you want to continue to go down. And yeah, I guess that's all I have for right now. Okay, let's keep going.
When you actually get married and you surround yourself in deep personal relationships with others who are, you learn very
Yes.
quickly
Hang
this
on,
is
hang on, hang on. This is such a great chat from Philosophist. Marriage should be much more of should be as much of not more of a friendship slash business relationship than a I mean, like I actually think this is like really on point. Like you have to be like friends with the person that you marry. If you're not like the romance doesn't last forever. It just doesn't. Like, love feels amazing when you first meet someone and you fall in love with them and you have all the butterflies and all this stuff. It is fucking incredible. But it doesn't last forever, man. Like, if you are not friends with your spouse, you are going to be screwed. If you can't have fun with your spouse and laugh with your spouse and, you know, just like talk about nothing and just like do silly shit and like all this stuff, if you can't do that, you are so screwed. It's not going to work. And it doesn't matter how attractive your spouse is, it doesn't matter how good they are in bed. If you are not friends, it's not going to
really
work.
was just so desperate for this life that I had in my head that I assumed my husband had in his head as well. Um, and as a result of that, I rushed into marriage. Like a college kid who picks up the Communist Manifesto and decides to join the revolution.
That's a funny comparison. She compares marriage to becoming a communist in college. That's funny. Shauna says, I think the tricky thing about marriage is when someone goes through an emotional or spiritual growth spurt, but the other partner doesn't. And a marriage that was once compatible is no longer that way. I mean, I think that there's truth to that. Oh shit, hang on. Broke my knitting. Oh my god, no. Um, I think that there is some truth to that, Shauna, but I'll also say this. Like, I mean, I think that my spiritual path might have actually saved my marriage, to be honest. The reason I say this is because what the fuck year was this? Probably about 5 years. It was 5 years into my marriage. It was 5 years in. And so I've talked about this before. My husband and I got married very, very quickly. And I love my husband to death. I will never leave my husband. I want to be very clear about that. Like I am deeply committed to my husband. And so like if I say like anything, I don't want anyone to have like the wrong impression about that. But my husband and I got married very quickly. We got married almost like it was like a week no, it was like about a week shy of 6 months after the day we met. My husband and I met on May 14th, 2011. We got married on November 5th, 2011. It was very, very fast. Now, there were reasons for that. And I've talked about this publicly, so I don't mind saying it again. Like, I met my husband. Um, we were dating. I knew that I wanted to marry him on our second date. That is absolutely real. I knew I was going to marry him on our second date. And then about a month after I had already kind of like decided, oh, I'm going to marry this guy, I'm pretty sure. Then he got picked up by immigration because he's from Ukraine and he came here and he overstayed his visa. And he came here legally to, no matter what Lauren Witzke says, he came here legally, overstayed his visa, got picked up by immigration, was going to be deported. If he had been deported, he wouldn't have been able to come back to the US for 10 years. And so basically, I was like, well, I already knew I wanted to marry him anyway. If I don't marry him, he's going to get deported. Let's have an ill-considered wedding. And like I make that like about to be a little bit of a joke, but honestly, it was like the easiest decision I ever made in my life. It was so easy. And so we did. We got married. He did not get deported. Yay. Um he has so like 2 year like so after we got married, he was granted like a temporary permanent resident status because we hadn't been married for like 4 years or whatever by the time that immigration got around to processing it. 4 years after we got married, he was granted permanent resident alien status. So he has like a permanent green card. I tell this because people are like, "Ew, Caroline, you just had a green card marriage and blah 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 blah." Well, guess what? If I had a green card marriage, my husband could have divorced me 8 years ago and still stayed in the U.S. as a permanent alien. So that's not real. But I say this because we did get married very quickly. About 5 years into our marriage, I'm being honest, like I'm not going to say things were bad. They weren't bad. Things were a little rocky. And things I think were a little rocky because I was like pissed a lot. I'm going to take responsibility for this. I was very 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 angry about a lot of things that I'm not going to go into. I started going down a path of like spirituality and spiritual growth, and I went to Peru to do ayahuasca for the first time and all this stuff. And I got to tell you, my husband has told me repeatedly that when I came back from Peru, when I went to Peru to do ayahuasca and I came back, I was a different person. And so my husband doesn't do the spiritual stuff that I do. My husband doesn't do like all this stuff. That's kind of my thing. It's not his. It's okay to have different interests, right? But he has told me that I was completely different when I came back. And so, in that respect, I do think that my spiritual path may have actually saved. I'm not saying we would have gotten a divorce otherwise. I don't necessarily think that's true, but like it absolutely dramatically improved our entire relationship. So I don't have any regrets about that. Anyway,